I remember playing tag when I was little. I was about your age. At Hunter Elementary School in Clawson, Michigan, my friends and I would run around, and one of our favorite versions of tag involved a base. We would run as fast as we could, trying to get away from the person who was designated as it. I don't know what it meant, other than they were trying to tag me and I was trying to escape from them. And I remember the thrill of just running flat out with someone right behind me and reaching base. It was fantastic. I was so pleased with myself when I didn't get tagged. We can all be susceptible to the temptation to try and get back to base. We want the familiar. We like the familiar. We like things often the way they were in some possibly imaginary past. See, I don't remember all of the times I got tagged. I don't remember falling down and skinning my knee, all those things. What I remember is the thrill. In some ways, the contrast between Jesus and his disciples and Matthew's telling of this final meal they shared together is like that. They saw the Jesus movement going in one direction, and Jesus saw it moving in another. They were wrong, and he was right. They were looking back, and he was looking forward. The disciples that night when they gathered were following their tradition. The preparation for Passover meant finding an appropriate place to celebrate. That's why Matthew tells us about them going and looking for the room they needed to be in. And then once you find the place, you have to make a careful search to make sure there are no leavening agents anywhere left inside, including crumbs or leftover bread. They had to check the Tupperware, get the back of the refrigerator scooped all out. It was a very thorough search to make sure that the place was ready. After that, they had to find the sacrificial lamb. They brought it over to church and had the minister kill it. I think they went to the temple and had the priest kill it. I'm so glad churches don't double as slaughterhouses and minister as butcher. But finally, they would roast the lamb. The disciples were so focused on the tradition, setting it up, making sure they did what they were supposed to do, exactly the way they were supposed to do it. They remind me of myself, not only as a child running away from whoever was it, but all of the ways we work so hard, try so hard to get back, to go back to base, to go back to the familiar, to go away sometimes from where God is leading and calling us. But in that moment, Jesus was looking ahead. And even though we who have gathered here together tonight and those who are likely watching have been here before, and we know where this week is going, we stretch and we tug, we grab and we hold on and we try to get Jesus to let us remain in the familiar. We, just like our beloved disciples, like our traditions. We might not be butchering a young ovine, but we can all look around and see the things to which we hold fast. I stand before you behind a pulpit. I'm wearing my robe while you sit in your pews. What are some of the other things that we hold on to that are traditions? Our beautiful stained glass, the cushions. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mention the cushions. I know that's controversial even 30 years later. I'm trying to recall if the disciples wore ties or not. I remember that one rebellious streak some years ago when in July we decided that it would be appropriate as a part of the summer comfortable worship setting that we on the platform the males on the platform would not wear ties. I actually did hear about that. We hold fast to our traditions. I don't know if you've ever uttered these words before, but I know I've heard them. We've never done it this way before. To this and our customs and the disciples' tradition, Jesus picks up a piece of bread and breaks it and says, you know what, that's right. We haven't done this before. This right here. What I hold is me. This is myself. Aramaic lacks the word body that we have in English and is available in Greek and Latin. So Jesus couldn't really have said, this is my body. But the word that he probably used was, my Aramaic pronunciation is terrible, gup, which means self or ego. Jesus looks at us clinging to the familiar and says, this is me, this is myself. When you do take me in, you move closer to the fulfillment of my kingdom. He was encouraging the disciples and in turn us to look ahead. He was encouraging us to know that something good is coming, and it might not be immediate, and it might not be what we expect, but something good is coming. In some ways, Jesus was looking ahead to the end of the world, but in other ways, he was telling the disciples, gathered there together in that room, about us. Yes, tradition is important. Yes, we do treasure our very rich history, and we look ahead. The disciples couldn't have imagined a group like us. Gathered in plain sight, worshiping God, they couldn't have predicted churches like ours where people can come in freedom. Where people walking by right now could walk right in. We, a people gathering in this sanctuary right here tonight, would absolutely blow their minds. Gathered according to the strict procedures of their tradition, Jesus and the disciples were in an intimate space. And in that space, Jesus doesn't leave us to move forward as empty, vacuous souls. His talk of "this is me" is an invitation to look inward and bring him with us. Yesterday on Spy Wednesday, we explored Judas' role and what he can say to us. Tomorrow we will remember Jesus' death. But tonight, here we are, in the room with Jesus and his disciples. And in the quiet of this space, Jesus calls us not only to move forward from what is behind us, he invites us to examine ourselves and says, take and eat. This is me. And when we do, we take everything in that he represents and have to ask what it means when we say, this is me. When we look back at him and say, this is who I am. What about me should I leave here on Maundy Thursday? What should I shed so that I can go through Good Friday and Holy Saturday to Easter? What do I need to change? On Maundy Thursday, we sit with Jesus and we have a conversation. We sit in the close space and we ask him our questions, and he gives us a piece of bread. We sit with him and the disciples, and we share our concerns and our fears and everything about who we really are. And Jesus hears us and gives us a cup of wine. From here we go forward, following Jesus through each step of his journey. Amen.